Hello and welcome to our video from oorail. Today we have another 15 minutes of modeling video, and it is Thursday, November 21st, 2019. So just a quick reminder, this weekend the Worley Mall Railway Exhibition is coming up. So I'm obviously not going since I'm in the United States and it's a little far away for me to go. I would love to go, but unfortunately I can't make that work this year. However, there's going to be plenty of YouTubers out there that will be there and taking videos and so on. So I will probably put together a Worley playlist. So some of the best videos that I see, I'll add those to that playlist and you guys can check it out. So today what we're going to do is we're going to continue our scene here. So I'm going to paint this up. I'm going to go sprinkle some stuff over here with the Woodland Scenics to darken this up a little bit. And if I have time, I will paint this ballast bin a sort of, I guess, aged concrete color. But today, I've mixed up some gray paint, I've mixed up some black paint, and before I start the timer, I'm going to go and mix up this brown paint as well, and we'll get this painted. I think we can paint the rails and the sleepers as well, and make a bit of a scene with that as well. Alright, so give me a few minutes to mix this up and then we'll get started. Alright, so I've started the timer, so let's get going. So I'm going to use a very simple disposable paintbrush, and hopefully this will look pretty okay. So I'm going to start off with some gray paint, and we're going to, now this is a Wood PLA 3D printed hut, and we're going with the gray, and you'll notice here that I'm applying it, but not in a very kind of heavy fashion. It's sort of, I want that wood kind of look to come through, so we kind of want it to look weathered, kind of, you know, if you've ever gotten a fence panel or something like that before it's been painted, it kind of has this, you know, if you leave it out for, you know, the 6 months, 8 months that you want to leave it out for, it has this kind of aged kind of look to it as it darkens, as it's exposed to the elements. So that's the sort of look we were trying to go for. So we're going to get that by just lightly dipping the paintbrush in and then sort of brushing it off. And this is very easy to do. I am not an expert by any means, and if I can do it, you guys can very definitely do it. It's all about just having a go at it, and you might mess it up a few times, but really it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, if you mess it up, just have another go. You can see there what's happened with the paint is that it's sort of, it's not transparent, but sort of almost being absorbed a little bit by the wood material. So it gives a really good effect. So we're going to continue this. You notice I'm trying to paint it up and down with the grain of the wood. It's a wood plastic mix. I think it's like 70-80% plastic, and the rest is kind of wood. But between the wood color of the plastic and the actual wood fibers that are in the plastic, it has a really good realistic wood effect. So I have no idea how much of this I'm going to get done today, but we'll try to get as much done as possible. Now, it doesn't matter if I don't get full coverage on the paint here. I'm really just aiming to give it a sort of a gray tinge rather than, you know, fully giving it a gray kind of paint. So I've also only slightly sanded the hut here, so it should hopefully turn out pretty okay. Now, obviously I'm not going to paint the whole thing because I need to be able to move it around. But what I'm going to do is just basically maybe grab it here and apply the paint real fast. Now what I found, if I want to sort of create this sort of aged look, is to kind of almost let it slightly dry, but don't let it completely dry, and then add the kind of brown paint to it as well, and it sort of mixes in and looks pretty good. So I'm going to set that aside over there for now. Obviously we're going to have to give it another coat of paint here in a little bit. Probably won't get that part finished today, but one of the things I wanted to do was add the bicycles. So I've got the bicycles here. I'm only going to add one of them, so we'll take one out, and I think what we want to do is just sort of set it up against the tree like that. I'm not going to glue it in. Oops, let's move that out of the way. I'm not going to glue it in or anything like that. I'm just going to let it sit there. I think that way I can move it around from scene to scene. But I think it'll look kind of cool. It kind of gives an added dimension to it a little bit, like so. Alright, so next up I want to paint the ballast bin here. So ballast bin is a 3D printed product. Actually, yeah, we'll do ballast bin next. First of all, it's got this thing called a brim on it, and so it should come off pretty easily. As you can see here, just tears right off. But it does leave just a little bit of a kind of uneven edge. So what I normally do is just take a knife and sort of just peel that edge off, so it ends up being more smooth. It's a little hard to do this on the camera, but I'll try. Alright, you just basically want to sort of peel it off like that. So what you're left with is that kind of completed look. Now there's still a little bit on that one corner. So we'll cut that off like that. Now you could obviously sand it as well, but I don't really need to do that. So next up, I'm going to go and shake this aged concrete paint. Give it a good shake. I'm going to move that into the middle there just so I don't get... Oh. Ah, there we go. So this is, I believe, is it enamel or is it acrylic? That's acrylic, so it shouldn't be too bad. So we're going to give it a bit of a mix up. So let's take another cocktail stick. This is a pretty good paint color. I'm sorry, I got the paint brush in my mouth here as I talk to you guys. And set that aside. Alright, so next we're going to just basically paint this. So I'm going to start by painting the bottom of it. And I don't really care if I get this color paint on other things. I'm just going to go ahead and paint this real quick. You can actually use the paint as almost like a adhesive. So we'll do that. And then what we're going to do, excuse me, we're going to go ahead and paint it in place here. So I'm just going to hold it down. I'm going to ballast this section and paint the baseboard here, so it doesn't really matter if I get paint everywhere on it. Like so. And we'll just paint the side. Now I'm going to leave painting the inside to last, and the reason for that is so that I can basically stick my finger in it without getting paint all over my finger as I paint my finger, as I say that. We'll paint the other side like so. Now these ballast bins, you would have seen these anywhere from the 60s or so on, I think. So they'll work pretty well, regardless of what I'm running on the layout at the time. And again, we're going to run over with a wash after this dries, or dry brush it maybe. So it should be okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put this in place where I want it. So I want it basically here amongst the trees and so on, like that. And so obviously we're going to have to flatten it out a little bit, but we'll take the glue. Let's make sure it fit first. And I think I'm gonna have to glue down some of these trees a little bit better. I think the existing underbrush sort of maybe caused some adhesion issues. I also have to make sure I don't pull it up. Yeah, there we go. So it's embedded there pretty good. And so what we're going to do next is just finish off the painting. So I should be able to just clean up where I've been touching. You really don't want to get paint on the existing flock or trees because it'll look a bit weird. But you also want to make sure that you get all of the sides here. Now you could paint this and then let it dry, but obviously since I'm doing the 15 minutes and also I've got the paint in the way, so I'm not sure if you've seen what I'm doing. So what I'm doing here is just this. So paint the outside, and then we'll just paint the inside a little bit. And it won't really matter, I'm going to fill this with ballast, so, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It usually takes 1 or 2 coats. You just remember to paint the base of it. And one of the reasons I printed these out in gray was that if for some reason it doesn't completely get painted or it's faded in certain places, it just looks like concrete, so it works out pretty well. Alright, so you've got that painted in place. Obviously when this dries we'll put some you know, greenery or something like in there, so that'll work out pretty well. Now I do have these bits of rail and some other stuff, so I think we're going to paint those next. Go ahead and paint these brown. So I've got the bit of rail here. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of paint it this sort of rusty brown color. And I will probably add some weathering powders once it's actually in place. And again, I'm going to paint it in place. So I'm going to hold on to the edge here, and then we'll stick it through. Again, you could probably paint these and then stick them in place later, but since we're trying to do this somewhat quickly, I really don't want to knock those trees over. So okay, so it should be pretty okay there. I'm going to take some paint and just sort of drip it into the area, like so. Now I'm not too worried about some brown paint ending up on the tree there. It'll just look like some burnt parts of the tree and so on. And I'm going to take this other piece of rail and put it beside it. So again, now we'll hide this further in the rail or in the underbrush as it gets built up, but it should be pretty good. So I'll take this, try not to drop it, and again just sort of, I think my hand's just too big, so just kind of drop that in place and use the back end of the paintbrush here. Just need to figure out which is the top part of the rail. There we go. And then we'll drop just some paint in it, like so. Alright. So you can see there what we've done is basically put together you know, some rail that's sitting in there, and it'll basically look like, you know, it's some track work that was done and kind of left off to the side and was never cleaned up or whatnot, and kind of some stuff kind of overgrew around it. I do have some sleepers. I think we'll maybe incorporate those as well. I might actually put a couple of them maybe in front of the ballast bin or something like that. I'm going to think about that though, so I'm not going to do these today. We're going to set those aside. You can always do a little too much, so you don't want to add too much scenery. You know, that whole adage, less is more. So we don't want to kind of mess it up by adding too much to it. So I'm done with the concrete paint here, so we'll set it aside and see what else we got going on. So, alright, so it doesn't look like I have a whole lot of time left. It looks like I maybe have like a minute or two. So I'm going to go and just add the brown paint to the gray that we already did. Now the brown paint here is a little almost, I wouldn't say overwhelming, but it's going to kind of be the main color, I guess, on the thing. So and we don't want to paint the whole thing brown, so you kind of want that mixed look. And what we're going to do is add some more gray paint on top of it once it dries. Oops. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is take a little bit more of this paint, maybe take some of it off the brush here, and then incorporate it onto the roof. Again, this hasn't fully dried, so it's a little sticky, but that's what we're going for, since we kind of want to mix it up a little bit. Build up some layers on it. You'll also notice I haven't painted the back of it yet. We'll get to that shortly. So I'm going to go grab the paintbrush I used for the gray paint, dip it in a little bit, brush some of it off, and then we'll sort of mix that in with the other paint here, and we'll keep going. Alright, I think I'm going to have to let this dry before I can go too much further with it. Like so. Alright, but I think that will work well. I think we'll drop that into the scene like so. And it'll look pretty cool. Alright, so I think my timer is about to expire, so let me... Alright, so there we have it. We've added some paint to the hut here, added the ballast bin, we've added some rails, and we added the bicycle as well. So it's a quick bit of modeling here on a Thursday afternoon, but I think it looks pretty nice, and obviously we'll keep building on it. So tomorrow I'm going to continue this. There's not too much more. I think I'm going to add another tree here in the background, and obviously I want to keep with the painting effect. So once this dries, you guys will get a better look at the end result once I'm done with it. So yeah, so I think a lot of folks are headed to Worley this weekend. So if you're headed to Worley, have a safe trip. And like I said earlier in the video, we'll put together a playlist or something of all the best videos that we find over the weekend, since we're not going to be there. Obviously, lots of YouTubers do a fantastic job for those of us who can't make it to see what's going on. Alright, so that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it, and until next time.